Welcome to Community Awareness. I'm your host, Donna Smith, and joining us today are three guests very knowledgeable on the topic of elder abuse and vulnerable adult abuse. Unfortunately, that is a topic that we need to address. There's plenty of information, and the guests here come with much of that, and we thank you for carving time out of your schedule to make this happen. First guest is Chris Becker, Kent County Chief Assistant Prosecutor, Trooper Martin Miller from the Michigan State Police, and then Nancy Krobonecki from the Area Agency on Aging, and also the Kent County Elder Abuse Coalition. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Please define for us, Chris, what is elder abuse? We might have an idea of what that is, but it comes in different forms.
Well, it comes in very different forms. I mean, there is not one definition of elder abuse. It's, there's physical abuse, which is kind of what it says in terms of you do some sort of physical harm to an elderly person. Obviously, elderly is defined in different ways too, but generally somebody over 62 is the traditional, maybe most common way. But there's also financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult where you steal money, you steal property, you steal anything that could be of value to a senior citizen. And then we also have this, sexual abuse. So those are the main ones that we deal with in the criminal justice system. Overwhelmingly, it's financial exploitation. I think that's because the baby boom generation is getting older, so there's a lot more potential victims out there, and people are taking advantage of them because they have money, they're retired, they've done the right things, if you will, as they've aged, the greatest generation, and now they make easy marks because they can't handle their finances appropriately, and people take advantage of that.
And this happens across all socioeconomic groups?
Yes, definitely. I think one of the first cases I dealt with out of up in Rockford area, man was taken for almost $1 million. He was living on his own, isolated, family checked up on him, but he had problems with dementia, so he basically tricked him, said he was going to publish his poetry. But he had to write checks to this individual to get his poetry published, and he went through almost $1 million before the family kind of stepped in or found out about it and realized something was going wrong. So you have, that's one extreme all the way down to, we have $200, $300, $1,000. But for some of those seniors, $1,000 is a lot of money that they can't afford to lose. So it's a broad spectrum. It can happen to anybody at any time, especially when you start seeing the effects of aging. When people start losing their memory, losing their, maybe suffering from dementia, short-term memory loss, something along those lines where they can't handle things like they used to, that's when it becomes a problem.
And how common is this issue within Kent County?
Oh, it's common. I mean, we don't, not that we have statistics. I think nationally I've seen 1 in 23 is a number I've seen that are ever reported. Because there's a whole host of reasons. The biggest one is the vast majority of the people who are abusing the elder are some of the elder trusts. It may be a family member. We've seen nephews, kids, grandkids, neighbors, who just happen to live next door and take care of that elderly person. They take advantage of them. Well, the elder doesn't want to admit it, or the elder doesn't know it because of their cognitive disabilities. So 1 in 23 in terms of ever reported, that's a kind of a national average. We don't keep track of stats like this. I've seen, it goes down to maybe 1 in 11. But it's one of the most underreported crimes that we see because of a host of different reasons.
Mm-hmm. I have to believe that's an emotional decision when indeed that's brought to their attention that they've been taken advantage of.
It can be. Sometimes they don't realize it, though. That's the other thing, too, with their cognitive disabilities. They don't realize it. It's more emotional probably for the family members because very often, we see a lot of family members, if it's the one brother, the one sister, the grandchild, very often the family doesn't want to get that person in trouble. If the adult realizes and is with it enough to know what's going on, clearly they don't want to have anything in trouble. This is their grandkid. They remember them when they were 10 and not 60 and stealing from them. So, geez, they have to think, oh, he's going to prison, she's going to prison. We don't want that to happen. We don't want anything done. But from a criminal justice perspective, we've got to step in and do something because, a lot of times what happens is that elder is going to get kicked out of their house, kicked out of their nursing home. They're losing things that all of a sudden we as taxpayers are going to have to now step in and try and pay for that. Which obviously we can't do, and we want to make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else because that person that it's grandma now, but they go getting a job in a home or something, working for Area Agency on Aging. Next thing you know, they're in a position where they have access to a lot of people. So we want to get something on their record to hopefully stop that.
Mm-hmm. You just touched on that, and that is how much of a caregiver. I mean, how often does it happen that a caregiver is responsible for this abuse?
The vast majority. I mean, the vast majority of them. There's always, I think, there's a tendency from when we talk with media about the scams, the door-to-door salesmen, the quick hit artists that come around, and we do see that, and that's not something to ignore. But like the phone solicitors, but the vast majority of the cases we deal with are close family members, not even caregivers. It doesn't have to be a caregiver. It's got to be somebody that they trust. You know, power of attorneys. Power of attorneys are something that people very often use to gain access. Joint bank accounts. It's somebody that's in a place of trust. Doesn't have to be a caregiver, but it has to be somebody that vulnerable adult that trusts, or the senior person that trusts, that has access, and the person just kind of gives them carte blanche, and they don't realize it till it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Does burnout for caregiving come into play at all?
In the physical abuse aspect, yes. I mean, if you're talking about physical abuse, yes, it's very easy to get frustrated with Alzheimer's patient. Dang it, why? I've told you this how many times, and they strike them and stuff like that. So we do see that in physical abuse. Financial exploitation, I wouldn't say burnout, but I think it's a sense of entitlement, because very often it's the son who's home while brother and sister are in Florida or Traverse City, and I'm the one taking them to the doctor. I'm the one, going over there to fix their house. I'm the one doing all this. And they're not doing it, so I should get paid. I should get my share now because I'm the one burdened with all this. So I wouldn't say it's burnout, but it's entitlement, because they're the ones dealing with that. But physical abuse, definitely, there's a lot of frustration, and people do things in the heat of the moment that they may not do because they're caring for that person 24/7.
Mm-hmm. So when this happens, if someone is alerted to that, this is something happening within a viewer's family, a sibling, somebody else is taking advantage of mom or grandma, what would be their first call?
I've always said I would call law enforcement. I think now, much more than the past, and I'm sure Marty can talk to this, in terms of they're much more cognizant of. In the past, it used to be, well, that's a civil matter, that's a family matter, we don't want to deal with that. And now with education, a lot of the work he's done, a lot of the work we've been doing through the Elder Abuse Coalition with Nancy, is educating police, educating law enforcement that this is something we need to step in and take a stand against. So law enforcement's an easy one. Adult Protective Services is another phone call to make. We always tell somebody. That's the biggest thing. I think all three of us try and get out in our messages is tell somebody. Don't just put it under the rug and not do anything. Call law enforcement, call Adult Protective Services, call Area Agency on Aging, call Silent Observer. Let somebody know that this is going on, because without it, it's an underreported crime. It's going to keep happening. It just doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm. And there is a department under the Department of Human Services. There's a elder abuse number to contact.
There is, and Nancy's probably got it better than I do, because I'm like, I can't remember right off the top of my head.
Well, I think some of us who are not in this line of work may realize, okay, there's Child Protective
Sure.
Services.
Mm-hmm. Same thing. It's the
Not
same.
Realizing, yes.
Yep. It's Adult Protective Services, same thing.
Yeah, a great service, yeah. Now, and I'll address this to all three of you, and that is, are there specific trends that you see? Certain trends come and go, and things that they find more successful, so to speak, in
with
scamming?
the financial scams, and they vary and things come and go. We're seeing a resurgence of many of them that have been around for a while, faded out, and now they're back again. And this time of year, one of the biggest is the scams with the IRS. We thought we had gotten that under control and they weren't doing it anymore, but they're getting better at it, and it's coming back up again, especially with tax filing season upon us.
And what approach do they use with that?
Typically, it's a very high pressure that we've done an audit. They're pretending to be the IRS, and we need you to call us immediately. When it comes down to it, they are told that basically through this audit or so, the individual owes money, and they must pay it now, or else a warrant will be issued for their arrest, that type of thing. You're dealing with a very trusting generation that when they hear that, they don't want problems, and they're going to do whatever they can to end it now. Plus the fear of just having a warrant for their arrest, an officer coming to their front door to get them, they want to avoid that, as most people would. So this generation will come up and they have to be paid now. That's one of the key themes. When somebody has to act now, things don't work like that, especially the IRS.
Now, do they typically use the phone or mail?
Most of them I'm hearing right now are a voicemail. They will leave a message saying, contact us immediately, leave a phone number, and then the individual calls them back. There are a few out there where they will get a hold of them through that initial phone call. But I'm finding that a little more rare. Sometimes they call, They wait to know when people aren't going to be home. They can leave their message, and then they know they're getting a call back.
All right. Are seniors targeted more and more for home improvement scams?
Home improvement, yes. They have their homes. They've been living with them, paying them off. Many are paid off. They're also a generation that can't do a lot of the repairs due to their age or physical capabilities. So when they get the knock on the door or they get the phone call that, hey, we drove by, we see your roof needs repair, or maybe some of this landscaping, you got some older trees that need to come down, and they can't do it themselves. So they will sign a contract. They'll present a very legal looking document and say, we'll be back in a week or so and we'll start you once we finish our current jobs. But they take the deposit and then they never come back. So there's many factors that play into the elder generation that need this type of work, but the scam artists can take advantage to get money now.
And Chris, what level of success can you speak to this? And is that in finding these people, these scammers?
The scammers, I think, we're fairly successful because generally the scammers don't just hit the one house. You know,
Right.
We usually find them in multiple houses. You get in the neighborhood, and all of a sudden you see 5 or 6, elderly people who have all been, have their roof repaired, and it just takes one. Hopefully, one calls, and then all of a sudden you find 5 others. And they'll say, well, usually I did your friend's house down the road, and that's how they get into with that elder. Well, at least that elder says, hey, I heard he did, Joe's house down the road. And then we go to Joe's house. Yeah, that happened. And then we have a pretty good success rate in terms of when we get something like that to build a case. So it is effective. Now, the phone calls, when you get from the IRS and along those lines, those are virtually impossible. Any phone solicitations, and once you send stuff to phones, through phones, because they tell you to go to Western Union or send them a credit card number, they're gone. That money's gone, and we can't find them because very often they're offshore.
Some of our biggest challenges with these right now is they are coming from out of state, out of the country. As my shoulder patch says, I have enforcement capabilities in Michigan. And once they cross the border, I'm trusting that another agency or even a federal government at that point will step in and take on the case. But as Chris said, we've had cases of $1 million on a Rockford local. It doesn't have to be that big to affect someone's life. But even the FBI will tell you their threshold right now is probably starting at about $250,000 in losses. It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, $10,000 credit card bill to they send or Western Union, even the federal authorities don't. That's gone, and we can't do anything because it's state or local in Kent County. It's gone.
If they're local, we will pursue it, guaranteed.
I have to believe that if an elderly person is the recipient of this and all of a sudden realizes, yes, I've been scammed, there's a level of embarrassment.
Yes.
And perhaps they don't really want other people to know. I don't want my children to know.
Sure.
I don't want this to be on the news. Does that keep some people from
Oh,
reporting?
sure, definitely.
Yes.
Most definitely.
I tell people, because I make presentations on this topic a lot, biggest thing they get, if they get that windfall, if they've won that prize, or if this bad thing's happening, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to anyone that you have a conversation with before you act. Somebody may know more, someone may say, hey, that's true, but getting it out there, there's a better chance that they get the right news and say, hey, that's a scam. Hey, this is who you really need to find out. Is it real or not? But don't sit at home. If you've been a victim, it is embarrassing. But the only way we're going to stop these people is if we know about it. So they do need to report it.
So ask questions. If you are thinking there's some red flags here, ask still more questions and talk.
They can call me anytime.
All right. Now, you just mentioned the Western Union. What are some things being done with the online and overline money transactions?
Not much. I mean, they spring up. They spring up so quickly and are gone so quickly that it's outside of our power. It's outside of the state police, it's outside of the prosecutor's office to really do anything to it. As soon as you just stop one, another one pops up, or they just move. In terms of federal authorities, they're kind of at a loss because the vast majority of them they are out of the country. They don't even have the ability to really stop them. Internet, anybody can set up a website. And they pop them up. So it's very almost impossible.
As funny as, as far as the wire transfers, like Western Union you mentioned, they are getting much better. They have a public image and a business to run. And I've found many times that an individual might be in the middle of a scam, they'll go to Western Union, and the employees will, oh, wait a minute, time out. We refuse to do this. And they're trying to protect them that way. But that's also why the scam artists have switched to those prepaid Green Dot credit cards. They're using wire transfers as far as the internet and not using a business. As much as we try to curb this behavior, the bad guys are trying to find other ways to skirt it as well. So things are constantly changing. But when you bring up a company like Western Union, I think they are doing a very good job to the abilities they can to interfere or protect the people.
Well, Nancy, I don't want to leave you over there because certainly you are full throttle involved in the protection of the senior population within Kent County, and you are a part of something called the Senior Coalition.
It's the Kent County Elder Abuse Coalition. We've been around for about 3 years now, going on 3 years. It's we're very lucky to live in Kent County. We have so many people dedicated to stopping or putting a dent into elder abuse. So we've got the prosecutor's office, law enforcement, adult protective services, bankers, accountants, lawyers, social workers who work for these different agencies that serve seniors. We have about 50 come a month. We have monthly meetings, maybe about 75 on my big list. But what we do is we talk about cases, and we just do different educational trainings so that we know what's going on, we know the latest scams. I probably send out something once or twice a week. People email me. I got one this morning from Marty about a psychic scam. I mean, we are constantly talking to each other about what's going on, and we really work well together. I think before, everyone was separate. Your police were here, and your prosecutor was here, and your APS, and now everyone comes together, and we really try to help and make a difference. We also do lots and lots of presentations. So to senior groups or to providers of service, we've done them, to the medical community or to, carpenters. Chris and I did one to home repair services. It was carpenters and plumbers. I mean, there's any kind of business that works with seniors, we can come to you and train your staff on what to look for with elder abuse. So not only the financial abuse, but what Chris mentioned is, most abuse is in the home. It's 90% is family, trusted caregiver. And so what do you do if you're the carpenter and you go in and you see a son being very abusive to his mother? How does that carpenter handle that? Or the, beautician or the, ER nurse. I mean, those people need to know what to do and how to report. So that's something we try to help with.
Even some of the food service people
Yeah.
we've been presenting
Your
to and
senior
educating.
meals, yeah.
Senior meals.
Yep. Yeah, they walk into that kind of thing all the time. And so how do they report it? What do they do? How do they know that they're not overreacting? So it's just all training and good education, good communication.
So they could contact the Area Agency on Aging directly.
If someone would like more information on the coalition, certainly call the Area Agency on Aging. We also have a website, protectkentseniors.org. And we have lots of information. I put up the latest scams. I have articles about different abuse cases. If someone would like to schedule a presentation, the best way would be to go on the website, and there's a couple different spots you can contact or book a speaker. You just, find the area and type in your information, and I'm the one who answers that, and I get right back to people. So,
So the coalition really is representative of a cross-section.
yeah.
Right, it's even beyond what because
Yeah.
we're also bringing in doctors' offices,
Yeah.
hospitals,
Yeah.
because they're really the front lines. But we're not the front lines being law enforcement because it's the doctors' offices, the Senior Meals on Wheels, it's those entities, banks. We're bringing banks and bank representatives because they're the ones at Western Union or whatever financial institution. They see it, they're the ones that can report it to get it to our level. So with the coalition, we really try and focus on bringing in partners who we wouldn't normally interact with, like banks, hospitals, doctors' offices, Sarah Care, people like that show
Right,
up,
right. Adult daycare, your Life EMS, the ambulance, the EMTs, those people see a lot of this. Yeah, we have so many good connections now.
Okay,
It's
so
really
to give
terrific.
them a call, the coalition and the Speakers Bureau is really what I'm trying to get out there
Yes.
as far as to let them know presentations can be made, get the information out
Yes.
that elder abuse is much more than the physical component. I was thinking of a friend who not too long ago was at a credit union doing banking business, and a few people in line was an elderly woman with who he thought was a grandson, and he was asking her to withdraw quite a substantial amount of money. And of course, an innocent bystander just eavesdropping and hearing a partial part of that conversation, but something told him this isn't right. This may be grandma,
Right.
but that money isn't for what you're stating it to be.
We've run into cases in the area just like you described, but it's a housekeeper. It's a maintenance person at the house who knows what the homeowner has. They're taking care of their needs. They start getting together with the banks. He doesn't want to sign her name onto the dual account, but there'll be a lot of pressure when you're dealing with someone who needs care and cares about others. There's just something they'll take advantage of.
And now, do you work closely with the State Attorney General's office, the Department of Justice?
No, I mean we can handle those cases. I mean, just like they're just another entity that can report. I know the Attorney General has a senior brigade which gets in there and does educational programs, much like we do with the coalition. So the Attorney General, can handle a case just like the prosecutor's office can. So very seldom do we actually work with them because they're their own entity, and they sometimes, a lot of times, they'll get involved in cases in smaller counties. Where Kent County is a big enough county, we have I don't do all my caseload, but we have two of us that are specialize in these types of cases where the smaller counties don't. You even have part-time prosecuting attorneys, or even police departments other than the state police that aren't familiar with this. So the AG's office will go into those types of situations where they don't have the ability to handle these cases like we can here in Kent County.
As far as the education and spreading the word, yes, the Attorney General's office has been very helpful to my needs there. But as far as prosecution, I've never had a problem. The Kent County Prosecutor's Office, I bring it in. But when they can produce different literature, different presentation types, and help me make it better, they've been a big asset for me.
Well, I'm kind of curious in that, as Kent County is a large county, do you find that certain scams, certain other components of this elder abuse is targeted at certain parts within Kent County? You mentioned something happening in Rockford, and it could possibly.
And that's just that goes back to it happens across all socioeconomic. It happens all across, whether it be Rockford, the inner city, Ada, East Grand Rapids. It can happen anywhere, and we've seen cases from all over the places. And it's not just people living at home. We've had it out of nursing homes, retirement homes. There is no one area that there's a greater potential for elder abuse than anywhere else. It happens everywhere. It happens across the board.
It happens in other languages. I know that we've done presentations to the Hispanic community, and they get targeted. The deaf and hard of hearing get targeted. They have the interpreters over the phone that they use when they talk on the phone, and there's lots of scams there too. I mean, it's just everybody is affected, no matter, and really every age. It's not just the elderly. People my age, my college students, we're all affected by this. It's just, seniors happen to be home more. They happen to use their landlines more than younger people, and so they're there to receive a lot of these calls. Or they're home and they have people come into the home to help them, and they can be the ones who are taking money or, persuading them to give them things or money.
Okay, when we're talking about abuse within a nursing care or assisted living facility, what would be the first line if someone were suspicious that mom or grandma, dad, grandpa is being abused here, physically abused?
Physical abuse is, it's almost more difficult because there's the conception that, seniors bruise easily, which they do, because of blood thinners, whatever medication they're on. But it's almost hard to get to because they're in situations where they can't testify, they can't tell exactly how they got it. The first line, once again, is law enforcement. Law enforcement is much more, we deal with shootings, stabbings, bruises, injuries all the time, and that's right in their wheelhouse. So law enforcement is a great place to go. There's also the long-term care ombudsman. That's a very good resource for people to go to in terms of getting responses from dealing with nursing homes and long-term care facilities. Adult Protective Services sometimes there's jurisdictional things. That's one of the confusing things is APS doesn't necessarily go into those homes. There's the Department of Consumer and Industry Services, I believe, may have jurisdiction there where Adult Protective Services doesn't, but they can at least get you in the right place. Hey, we're not going to deal with it, but we'll send it over there. But law enforcement is always the best place in our perspective.
Okay, because I would have to think, especially if this is something new to an adult child, of the person who's in the nursing care. If they go to the administrator, but it's kind of excused away or
Sure.
so on, they don't want this on their record, we might think
It's
that
more difficult. We've, you know, oh, well, no, she fell. She falls a lot. My grandma falls a lot. Well, you don't get a black eye. How many times do you see a black eye from falling down? But that's, you know, that's a lot of what you see sometimes is the excuses, and nobody's there to see it. And if grandma's got dementia, she can't tell what happened. So those are very difficult cases too. You know there's a black eye there, and you know it's probably not from falling. But then who do you charge? There's 5 different care workers that go in there on whatever shift it is, or is it, you know, another resident? Sometimes that happens. So that's a whole set of unique challenges.
so ask more questions, but don't necessarily stop there.
No, don't ignore it. Trust your gut. We can extend and basically exhaust all avenues to prove both that no, it was just normal life, and I mean a good normal life, or that someone is abusing, someone's grabbing, someone's hitting, someone's using other techniques to physically abuse someone. The law enforcement can get in there, do their investigations. You get interesting when you get into nursing homes, hospitals, because of different laws that protect medical facilities and their medical records, but nothing better than a face-to-face interview, face-to-face seeing what's going on as best we can, and we will exhaust every avenue we can to make sure it works.
Family's got to stay involved. I mean, that's the biggest prevention is family stay involved. It's when you don't leave mom, grandma in there and not visit for 2 or 3
Right.
weeks. Stop by daily, you know, even for 5 minutes. You know, stay involved. Look at what's going around. The more you're engaged, the more you're there, the harder it is to exploit your loved one that's in one of those situations.
So Nancy, tell us again who to contact if we have questions or want to learn more information about elder and vulnerable adult abuse.
Well, the best place to go would be our website. It's protectkentseniors.org, and there's great information there. If you'd like to book a speaker or learn more, just go ahead and look at the website. You can call the Area Agency on Aging as well. And there's not only me, but there's lots of people on staff who know a great deal when it comes to you know, good care and how to treat elders with respect and elder abuse laws and things like that. So absolutely, those 2 spots.
So whether they have a question or whether they're seeking additional information for their group,
Yes.
you have the information.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
She's got all the answers.
Yeah, okay. Well, again, a great cross-section, and I appreciate the hard work that you're doing to protect our vulnerable population, and we wish you success as you continue on. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. And we thank you for joining us today on Community Awareness. I'm your host, Donna Smith.